Hi, this is Ast3rix and welcome back to my channel. So tonight we are going to be exploring Reason 11 VST. Um, so I have been playing around with this for probably a good week now. And I went ahead and picked up the upgrade for the Suite Edition because I didn't own any of the extra REs that were included in it. And I have to say that I'm very happy with this VST. And it's like revisiting an old friend because, as you know, I started out being a Reason user. And I was a Reason user up until a good it has to be 2 years now. I would say it's probably 2 years now that I've been off of Reason as my primary platform, and being able to go back in and utilize a lot of the rack extensions that I kind of had pretty granular knowledge of, and then being introduced to a lot of new ones was kind of cool. So let's just take a look at what I've been doing. So I created a track. This is a really unusual track. I'm just gonna tell you that. So I started out with. Hold on, I'll just open this up. I'm using the Complex One, and I'm layering it with the Waves Layer Edition. And I'm using two different sounds. So in the Complex One, I'm using the snowy tempi lead, and in the Waves, I'm using the cheesy organ. And this is what that sounds like. Okay, and in addition to that, I'm using the unfiltered audio Spec Ops, and I'm using a patch called Jigsaw Slide. And from there, I'm using Portal, which is by Output, and I'm using a patch called Crystalline Accent, or Ascent, sorry, and I'm using it halfway, and my grains are right in the middle. So it's giving me that sound that I created there. From there, I'm using, pull this up, I'm using a Parsec, and it started out being a string sound. I'm using the big pad for that, but it ended up being something else. So I'll show you what that one's doing. So this is a kind of really haunting kind of sound. I'm using the Freak Show Industries Dumpster Fire. And again, this plugin has weird settings, and you have to kind of just tinker with it to get it to do stuff. So starting from middle, I have it going like the 1 o'clock position on the big knob, and then about the probably 11 o'clock position on the smaller one on the left, and about 10 o'clock position on the one on the right. And that's what gives me that really weird screechy sound. And I have a shaper box in there too, the shaper box 2, and I'm using two things, actually three things. I'm using the pan, which is panning left and right. I have a filter, which is just straight up 21K. And I have the width, a stereo width, which is doing a panning left and right. From there, I'm using an Eventide H3000. I'm using a patch called Space Echo. And again, this is Experimental Sunday, so I have a lot of weird stuff going on. So, all right, so the next one, let's see, this one is piano sound. It's the new one of their new REs called Process Pianos. I've played with this one a little bit, and I was kind of impressed with the samples, the piano samples. Sometimes that I've found in other VSTs that they don't do a really good job of sampling the piano in a way that's useful. But this is actually really good implementation of a sampled piano. So it's got a Steinway K and it's got a Steinway D in there, and they're really, really, really good sounds from all of those, from those pianos. So on this one, let's see, what am I doing with this one? I have an Endless Smile, and it's cranked up midway, and I have a back mask in there, and it is giving me the backwards effect. And it's doing this. Hold on, I'll just play this one. So, yep, very unusual for me with some of the patterns that I'm using for sound-wise. So the next one is I'm using drums. So now I did find it a little difficult at first to get the drum machines to act right. Act right meaning I had to create like an automation lane to turn this thing on and off, because otherwise the pattern would run continuously. And sometimes you want to have like stops and breaks in there. So I was able to automate the run button, and I was able to do that, and I'll show you after we talk about the sound. So I'm using their new drum machine called Rhythmic, and it is the Dub Explosive sound pack, and I'm using half Merlin, and I've took out all the hi-hats, so I'm just doing a kick and a snare with it. And what I did to automate the run button was I clicked on configure, and when you do that, Ableton expects you to touch something. You touch the button that you want to automate, and when you do that, it'll show up here as a parameter. I haven't tested all of the other things that can be automated within Reason, but so far I haven't had any problems. But considering that I haven't done a whole lot of automation, I can't guarantee that everything is automatable because it is dependent upon the manufacturer to do so. So when I did that, I created an automation lane for it. And what I did notice, I did have a little bit of an issue with getting the automation to work. So I had to throw a on switch to turn it off. And then when I did that, after I did that, everything started working properly, which is a little weird because that's not what the automation lane says. So off is the downward motion or downward bar, and on is up. But when you push play for the first time, it's always on, and I had to set it to on just to get it to reset for some weird reason. So that's some kind of weird MIDI thing. So hopefully Propellerhead will take a look at that. Sorry, Reason Studios will take a look at that. There's something that's still a little not quite right with the way that that it communicates from a MIDI standpoint with the DAW. But again, I was able to get past that by throwing in a control right at the beginning to turn it on and then off again, and then I was able to program it. So not a big deal. Other than that, I put in my normal API vision for that. Pumped up the drums a little bit. Let's see. And then from there, let's see what else we got going on in here. I threw my own hi-hats in there because because I didn't want to have to like mess around with trying to program a pattern. So it's just a loop, a hi-hat loop in there. And then I threw in an 808 loop pattern as well. And I have the 808 loop pattern doing a reverse. So that's super unusual. So I'm getting the tail end of the sample playing backwards instead of it playing forwards. And then I've put a fab filtered Saturn in there. And I'm using the 808 designer with the warm tube. Knocked off a dB here, pumped up a dB on the lows. And then I'm also using the Wave Submarine, and I'm using a patch called Towers of Dub. So I have my sub going, the sub 2 going all the way infinity off. And then the sub 1 is right in the middle. Cranked up the range, I cranked up the drive to 60.2. The dynamics are off. And that's all I did for the sub. And I got a vocal track in there. And I'm using the Shep's Omni channel to give it a little bit of clarity. Because I'm using the compressor and the EQ. And I'll just show you that. So I've got some compression in there. It's doing a 1.9 ratio with a 30.45 attack and a 164 release. And I have the saturation knob turned on to 15. And let's see. So the highs are 4.2, mids are 5.5, got the tone at 1.9, and the lows are right in the middle. So that's what's going on with that plugin. And I've got a polyverse manipulator, and I'm using a patch called Barry, and I'm using it at 25%. I've also got an Echo Boy, and I'm using the classic analog delay, and I have the mix knob turned dry to almost half, going in that direction and to the left, sorry. And that's all I've got for this track. So again, I'm very impressed with the rack. I've had not a lot of issues. Occasionally I'll experience a little bit of crashing, and I'm not sure what's causing that. I've reported those crashes to Ableton. So I have been going through my VSTs and deleting all the 32-bit VSTs out of my system. And I've noticed by doing that I'm not getting as many crashes as I used to get. So all of the VSTs that I'm using now are 64-bit, which is a lot more stable. And I've started trying to use more of the VST3 VSTs, but I've noticed that a lot of the manufacturers have still not created VST3 plugins yet, which is, you know, not really sure what's going on. Most of the, especially the major ones, like Waves, they've already converted everything over to VST3. UI's already over there. Output, all of the output stuff is over there. So I'm just kind of trying to understand what's going on with everybody else. Arteria's done it. So it's like a really slow wait for everybody to change over to VST3. They seem to be a lot more stable from a VST standpoint. Outside of the quirky problems that I've experienced with Reason, and mostly it's been like, let me see if I can kind of show you what I've experienced with it. So one of the things that I know those of us who use this in beta noticed right away is when you have it set to have the browser open, it does this, it cuts the rack off. And I thought that was going to be fixed in the version that was going to be released to the public, but it wasn't. It's not a big major issue because you can close the browser and reopen it, and it flips back out. But other than that, everything loads perfectly. I really like these new instruments. I haven't had time to really create with a lot of the new ones yet, so I'm going to be probably spending some more time with exploring and delving into a lot of the new stuff, like Complex. That's new to me. I've actually had the layers for a while. Let's see, what else is new to me? Grain is new to me. Europa is new. I've had them, but I haven't spent very much time in them at all. Let's see, what else is out there? The Reason drum kits, that's new to me. The electric bass, the Scenic Hybrid, even the Umph drums, the club drums, and the retro beats, those are new to me. And of course the processed pianos, that's new. They've also got a wealth of new effects, this quartet chorus ensemble, the sweeper modulation effect. Those are like brand new. And they split out the mix bus, the channel dynamics, and the channel EQ into 3 separate plugins, or 3 separate rack extensions, sorry, which is kind of cool. So you can use those in your productions, which is, that's interesting. Let's see, what else is new in here that I haven't messed with yet? Yeah, it's been such a long time since I've looked at Reason. It's like everything looks new to me again because I haven't used it in a really long time. Having this Audiomatic retro transform is going to be cool because I used to be able to do a lot of cool stuff with that. So I'm going to have to experiment with making things sound different with it and using it like an effect. So that'll be cool. So I'm looking forward to spending more time with this thing and really trying to utilize it more inside of Ableton. Some people are probably going to use these players like the Pageator and the Note Echo and the scales and chords. Those things only work with rack extension devices, unfortunately. They haven't implemented a method to allow the MIDI in and out with these devices. So if you try to pull them over without having something like a rack extension added, they don't work. So forget about it, or at least for now. So something else that's new to me is this polystep sequencer. So I'm kind of curious about that thing. It's totally new to me. And this quad note generator, that's new to me as well. So I'll have to spend some more time and getting to know what those are about. Well, that's all I've got. If you have any questions, please leave comments in the comment section. I'm probably going to do like maybe a breakout video kind of working through using some of this new stuff. I think that'll be fun because I haven't used Reason like this in a while, and being able to use it inside of Ableton is, it's like a totally different world. So I'm able to do a lot more than I would be able to do within Reason standalone. Well, that's all I've got. I'll see you guys next Sunday.
I swear you look like a diamond.